Okay, this is number 2 that's going to go like on that rollout. As I used to add the links about Corpus Police Department, stuff like that, I don't know if those links are still on there, but it was a Dallas, if I remember correctly, it was a Dallas law firm, but he had a particular thing on corruption in this police department of Corpus Christi. And I do remember 2 of the cases, or 3. One was, there was a officer at Whataburger in town. I don't know which restaurant. It's a popular hamburger restaurant. And he got a call, and it was a domestic violence call. A woman had called in. This was years ago. And he said on the radio at the Whataburger, he asked, like, well, what is it? What is it? Like, is it an immediate death that she's going to be murdered? But it was a domestic violence. It was like, well, we don't think she, something like that. And he said, I'm going to finish my meal. And he sat. And how do you know about it? Because there was another cop that realized the criminality of that particular act. And that other cop heard him and reported, said, no, we can't operate on this level. He's probably gone now. And that officer got some type of a very slight penalty for basically not doing his job. That was one, and I remembered that. And it was, these were documented by Dallas law firm. He also documented another officer who had a couple of off-duty cases. I think he was a younger guy, but he was beating the shit out of people at parties. And not only, if you're a civilian and you assault another person, in this community, that's a high crime, and especially if you get a weapon. And nothing happened to that other cop. And these were a couple of links. Now, today I got to cut my grass. Why? It's high. But the chief of police, Chief Mike Markle, on the Jim Lago show, which I mentioned the other day, that's what he said. We're going to go around now again. This is called code enforcement. I gave you the example on the last video of my friend Chris, who was a machinist. And he claims till this day that they just wanted to buy his house, the house he was in. He told many people. And you had the same arresting officer buy his house while he sat in jail. It showed me, man, this is a backwater region of this country. This is a backwater region of this country. I don't talk too much about my friend's Pierce situation, but he showed me the subpoenas that were mailed to him and signed by code enforcement. And these are legal documents basically saying, if you don't show up, and this is the 2nd or 3rd time he's got these. The other one was for weeds. And the notice says, if you don't show up, you're going to be arrested. And I thought there was something about a felony. Now understand, I have friends that have had lives of crime. This is not one of them. I think he's still paying on that property he has. But he got it at a very cheap rate. And he told me the story, how God blessed him with that property. And it's a nice little property. And for those of you in the local region, that property that my friend has, it's on a street called Stewart Street. And it's right off of Laguna Shores and Flower Bluff. And I've done some videos there. But the Chief Markle, lives right across the street from my friend. And I remember, because this is now in legal process, where this friend now is going to have to go get another lawyer, defend himself in court under threat of being put in jail, and it's all from a letter, an uncertified letter sent by the code enforcement. Now, my friend also has helped homeless people before. And there was a threat made to him by somebody on that neighborhood that I better not see these homeless people. He made that threat many years ago in this neighborhood. So this is our neighborhood, Mr. Don. Okay. But he's friends with the police. He's friends with you, Markle. And this is why I have to discuss this. But then there was a question. My friend has a nice pier, and I used to go pray on that pier. It's a beautiful, like, prayer spot. And a little, like, fishing shack at the end of the pier. By the way, the fishing shack meets the standards, because my friend had to look into it, he's challenging it. You're allowed to build a structure the size that he has, the way that he has it. That's permitted in code enforcement. But it's only a structure if it's called a playroom or something. Meaning it's not out of the violation of the actual structures you could allowed to build on your own property, because he owns that little waterfront property. But because the structure is something that some in that neighborhood don't want, there was an anonymous complaint that instigated a warrant on my friend. And the complaint was this: because code enforcement, which are run by the cops in this town, showed up one day. They've been there multiple times, the high weeds. And then they showed up with a warrant to search the property. This was a few months ago. And rightfully, my friend Don asked, what kind of, you're here with a warrant, like I'm a criminal. What are you here for? They told him we had an anonymous complaint that one of your neighbors saw you throw something off this pier. Those of you that live in Corpus Christi, D.A. Mark Gonzalez, if you're driving over what we call the JFK Causeway into Padre Island, look to the right and you'll see a little pier. And the chief, Markle, lives right across the street from where that pier is. So the anonymous complaint more than likely came from Chief Markle or one of his family members. And this upsets me because if this is so, it began now a legal process. My friend almost died of cancer last year. And I went and seen him at Spawn Hospital, the same friend. That's when he also was having the same legal battle about a weed that was high. So we think that the chief did that because he lives right there. But you would think that you could ask the code enforcement, which I've been to in this town, say who complained. And they told him that's private information. And you'd have to file a Freedom of Information request to find out who made the accusation that they saw you throw something off the pier. And Don, they fish off the pier. He said, John, it might have been one of us throwing the guts of the fish back. He fishes off that pier. But yet when they came, there are two structures, a house and then the little house on the pier. And they were there to investigate. But they had the wrong address on the search warrant. More than likely instigated by Markle, because they won't tell him till this day who made the complaint. You see, it's their tool in this town. So they went back, had to correct the address, then they came back with more to pile on. Like, how dare you challenge us? All the killing, shootings, the unsolved Fuqua death. This is what you're doing out here. This is what you're doing. And I read it, he showed it to me the other day. So more than likely, this was a little thing. And my friend Don did tell me, we have to get it in the open. Because you're now going after him to possibly put him in jail. Because of the way you sent that letter to him. To possibly had shown up and said, you didn't show up. They put a bench warrant out on you, or a warrant, blue warrant or something. All over grass, initially grass, and then a pier. But they didn't remember the code enforcement, the city. They don't keep everything on file particular permits you have to get to build a pier. It's according to my friend now. And so they looked for whether he got a permit. All of this is instigated because Markle doesn't like his particular friends type of thing. That's how this is instigated. So because they couldn't find on record whether he got the permit when he built the pier years back, some of my homeless friends actually were out there. Yui was out there helping that time. I walked it many times. Beautiful spot. So the chief visited my friend because he used to fish on the pier. Don let him fish. They know each other. You see, Miss D.A. Gonzalez, you see now how I know this? Don Winton and Mike Markle live across the street from each other on Stewart Street. Why don't you investigate that, whether the chief has used his authority for personal means? Because one day the chief went out there, was hanging out with my friend. Said, John, we didn't know the light was going to shine like that. And he asked him. And he lied. He more than likely lied. He said, you know, Don, I'm thinking of buying a little property down off of the same Laguna shores, because the chief's is not off the water. And he said, and I'm thinking of building a pier like you just built, like you have. This is testimony from Don. He said, do you need a permit? Do you need a permit? And Don said, oh, yes. And according to Don, he said, yes. And he got the permit, is what Don said. That this is how much the permit is and everything. And then the ball started rolling. You see? And you say, oh, we now understand. So even the top police chief also utilizes it. Now you understand. And this is nothing compared to the other stuff. This is nothing. This is nothing. And do you know, if you use your authority for a personal thing like you just saw, you would never have seen this come out in a court. No, they're in the process of possibly putting him in jail. He takes care of a disabled lady. She's got like mental disabilities. They took her children away from her many years ago. So all of that will be gone. And all of this was instigated by a process. So this would be number 2. My friend I think he's okay with me discussing these issues. There were other ones that I don't discuss. Interactions he had with. And the only reason I know all of that is because he's one of the friends that I would go visit. I have friends that I don't get paid to do this. I visited my friend Mike, the painter. I spent 2 or 3 hours. Mike says, and John, he's smart, Mike, and he suffers from difficulty. And he says, thank you for coming by for counseling, because you do it free. And some of my friends have had other counselors. I said, no, I see this as a ministry for me. This is the little original ministry ledger I had. I saved it when we first started, and I was putting our little offerings in. Now, the other thing that's the problem in this region, I did, 13? Maybe I'll do that on the next video. So when I see the chief talk about code enforcement, which he did last week on Jim Lago, and then I see how they used it, I'm thinking, they're like this region of the country. It's like old-time boys connected with one another. The dynamic of the firehouse was you knew your friends, and we never engaged in this shit. But you knew a lot of people. And then I realized, man, this is backwater here for them to get away with that. This one little thing, which more than likely is what happened, which I just explained, that would be enough for that chief to get fired. Because you don't use your influence and then involve yourself in a personal complaint with information that you yourself gained through posing as a friend and saying, I'm thinking of building a pier too. Are you the personal investigator? Are you the detective, Markle? To accomplish a personal vendetta? And then for me to read the letters of threat of subpoena I took Don to get a lawyer for the other ones he got. And then the community is watching the unsolved Fuqua murders. The community is thinking, no, surely they're on top of the ball. Surely they're not doing shit like that. No, surely they are.